Again, my name is Rodney Paul. I'll just tell you a little bit about myself before we get going. I have been with San Francisco City Guides for 6, going on 7 years. My first tour with them was in the Haight-Ashbury, and I continue to do the Haight-Ashbury tour, but I've added a new one, the Salesforce Transit Center tour, which we're gonna kind of touch on a little bit in tonight's program. And I'm going to show you some maps relating to both those tours. And I do a lot of other things too. I have other tours that I put together, and I do a lot of virtual tours. And one thing, for those of you who are tour guides, I think these maps are really perfect for doing like these online tours. So definitely keep that in mind. Let's see, I told you guys I'd give you a couple minutes into the past 7:30 to finish up the poll. So I'm going to keep the poll open for another 30 seconds and then close it and share it with you. But I'm seeing we're getting people from, a lot of people from San Francisco, so that makes a lot of sense. But others in the Bay Area and from outside of California and outside, we've got one person connecting from Japan. Thought occurs to me, it must be early in the morning there. Thanks for getting up early. In June, you did not come on my tour before. Well, hope if you come to San Francisco, you'll come on one of my tours. Okay, I am ending the poll and sharing the results with you. So you can see we have a lot of people in the Bay Area. And so that means you guys do have access to the San Francisco Public Library. 17 of 37 have a San Francisco Public Library card. See, a couple of you are planning to get one. I highly, highly recommend that. We have some San Francisco City Guide tour guides. I didn't ask if anybody was in the new class, but if you are, that's really terrific, because you know how valuable these tools are for doing research on the tours that we lead. Many of you have visited the San Francisco History Center at the San Francisco Public Library. It's a great place, one of my favorite places. And some of you have used Sanborn fire insurance maps before. Hey, guess what? Since we're on Zoom and you've got access to chat, please feel free to fact check me if there's something I neglect to mention, that you have a favorite tip or something. Go ahead and throw that in the chat. I love the use of chat. Highly encourage you guys to put stuff in there. I'm going to be reviewing the chat at the end of the program. So if you've got some special tip you want me to try out with Sanborn Maps, I'll be able to check it out and maybe even put it in my weekly newsletter or something like that. But this is time travel with Sanborn Maps. I call it time travel because I kind of see this as a really great way to go back in time and see how different places in San Francisco looked. And to the left of my little title here, this is just one of these maps. It's kind of a special place in San Francisco. First and Howard Street is known today as Foundry Square. You would never, looking at the businesses there, understand why it's called that, because in the 21st century, it's got a lot of financial service companies, stuff like that. But if you go back to the late 19th century, it had all these foundries, and it's right next to the Salesforce Transit Center. And just kind of hard to believe this industry being right close to a major transit hub. Also, this is residential right here, but we're going to get into all that. I don't want to get ahead of myself. I do want to mention that this program is brought to you by San Francisco City Guides. You were given the opportunity to make a donation when you registered. If you are inclined to make a donation later, that's very appreciated. It's not required or expected, or I'm not pushing this real hard, but we are a nonprofit organization. We have survived the pandemic, and it's really thanks to the generous donations from so many of you that we've been able to do that and keep our 2 paid staff members going. What are the Sanborn fire insurance maps? Let me first say I'm not an expert on these maps. I guess I guess I'm somewhat of an expert, or I wouldn't be doing this program. But it's just something I've been playing with them for a few years, and then I got really into them about 6 months ago. The Sanborn fire insurance maps are from a company called Sanborn Map and Publishing Company. And they were big they started in the mid 19th century as a way of providing information to insurance companies who wanted to give people fire insurance. And they would look at businesses and residences to offer fire insurance and come up with a premium, but they also wanted to know what was nearby, because your business, you might have a really good fire safe building, but if you're right next to like a foundry that was in a wood building, for example, that would be something they would pay attention to, and you'd probably have to pay a bigger premium for that. So they existed mid 19th century into kind of the late 20th century, and their business kind of started going south around the middle of the 20th century. They started. It's expensive to maintain these maps, as you'll see. It's a lot of information, and they were done by hand. That's what's most extraordinary about them. And they were done for cities all over the United States. And these maps would really cover places that are fairly densely populated. So if you're looking for some kind of like a state or a farm or something that's not close to a lot of other things, it might not show up on one of these maps. We'll see some of that. Now, the maps are actually a physical thing. So here is the San Francisco History Center, and it has these volumes. I think there's like 16 of these volumes for different parts of San Francisco. And look how thick they are. These are the maps from 1950, but then they would actually paste in updates to the maps. So that they could update, if something changed, if something went into a location, they would add it there. But the great news for us is these maps have been digitized, and you can access them online. And if you have that San Francisco Public Library card, you can do it for free. And you can see lots of different places. I think the San Francisco Library subscription covers California, so you wouldn't be able to do this for places outside of California. There's also microfilms of these maps. You can go and use the physical ones if you go to the San Francisco History Room, and they'll help you figure out how to use them. We're not going to go into that today. Today, we're going to focus on these online digital maps. It's actually, the site is called Fire Insurance Maps Online, FIMO. And these maps were done periodically, because again, it's a lot of work to create them. So for San Francisco, you'll often for places find maps of 1887, 1899. There's a 1905 set of maps, but it's not in the FIMO database. I'll show you, we'll talk briefly about a different way of accessing them, which is not as powerful as the way we're going to be accessing the maps. Then we have 1913 and 1950. What's cool about the 1905 maps is that that's right before the San Francisco earthquake and fire. And so it's a real snapshot of a place that obviously changed greatly following that. For our purposes, we can look at 1899 and 1913 and see some of those changes. Now, I'm continuing to encourage you guys, by the way, to use chat. And I'll stop and periodically look at questions. I see June's question: if I have a Santa Clara County Library card, can I get access to the maps? And the answer, unfortunately, the answer to that is no. It's really just the San Francisco Library. That's the only one I know of that has this subscription. Even the Los Angeles Library does not have this, which is like just another thing that San Francisco has over Los Angeles, in addition to the fact that our baseball team's a lot better than theirs. This 1964 is kind of that physical edition that I was talking about. Actually, I think this would be more accurate to say 1950 with updates through the 1990s. This is just it's an example of a map. Funny thing about this location is it's very close to the San Francisco Public Library. Would be up here in the upper left-hand corner. This is Market Street. This is south of Market. And what really tickles me about this, and we'll talk about this a little later on, is very close to the corner of 8th and Market Streets. This is 8th and Market right here, was a baseball stadium. This is from the late 19th century. It was called Central Park. Really weird dimensions. So I don't really know how the diamond was laid out, but pretty interesting there. And then you'll see all kinds of different things around it. The different colors represent different types of building material. So we have like this red represents brick, And those of you who know about San Francisco and earthquake safety know that brick is a pretty dangerous material in an earthquake. The yellow is framed wood structures. I'll be honest and tell you, I don't remember what the green is in this, and we'll see some other colors. Here is actually a key that does not include the green. So actually, I don't know what green is. But this yellow is fireproof construction. So that would be what the fire insurance company would like to see the most. Blue is also like using stone or concrete or even metal. Well, actually, gray is an iron building. So really, like these are going to be their favorite materials. The brick was used quite a bit in the late 19th century. And today, of course, we really worry about those places that are made of brick. There's things you can do to reinforce them, but they are a concern. So this is really this is something a question that I had with the fellow tour guides in mind. What questions can we answer with Sanborn maps? But really, this applies to everybody. There's all kinds of interesting things we can learn from these maps. So one question would be, what was the geographic layout of long gone historic landmarks? And this is from my Haight-Ashbury tour. This is a place called the Chutes, which was an amusement park at the turn of the 19th century in the Haight-Ashbury. My wife pointed out that this layout kind of looks like a guitar, maybe an electric guitar, but I don't think that's what they had in mind. These were, you would go upstairs, a set of stairs, and then you would get in boats and go down these slides at speeds of up to 50 miles an hour and land in this lake. And this was something that attracted people from all over San Francisco. Here's where it was in relation to the neighborhood. So it's on Haight Street between Clayton and Cole. And those of you who know Haight Street, like there's nothing like that there today. I think there's a really good, there's street tacos somewhere in all this. The Zim Zam, bar, there's all, this is totally changed in the actually for many years going. This thing did not last long past the early 20th century. And to note that there is really nothing else on Haight Street. This is Page Street, the next street over. Here's a map of what the whole thing looked like. So there's these chutes that people went down, and this house that's circled is on Page Street at Ashbury. It's actually a fellow city guide lives in that house. And there's a whole story behind that house, which I won't go into right now. But just interesting that Page Street was really the first street to get houses in the Haight-Ashbury. And then just a block away is this amusement park that attracted people from all over the city. And then you'll see these vehicles on the street. Again, this is like, late 19th century. These are cable cars coming on Haight Street, probably taking people to this attraction. Here's another place from San Francisco history, near and dear to the heart of anybody who loves the Haight-Ashbury like I do, and it's the Winterland Ice Rink, which was for many years an ice rink, and this is from 1950. At that point, I think it was still an ice rink, but later on it became Winterland, which was one of Bill Graham's great venues for rock and roll music. And a very famous place here is The Last Waltz was filmed at Winterland in 1976. I believe it was Thanksgiving night. And this is the band. It was their last live performance. They were later joined by Bob Dylan and Ringo Starr and Ronnie Wood and Dr. John, all kinds of, Joni Mitchell, don't want to leave her out. Van Morrison was there, but we won't mention him since he's been such a jerk during this whole pandemic. But yeah, so it's kind of interesting that, this is just the layout of it at Steiner in Post Streets. And then here's what it looks like today. Today, it looks nothing like this. The place was torn down in the late 70s, early 1980s. Maybe somebody out there in chat knows. And this is where it would have fit in there today. Right, today, these are apartment buildings. There's a church back here that I think it was like some sort of Masonic temple before. This is made of brick, by the way, this thing here. In fact, I think we can go back and see that. So this is it's called the Golden Gate Commandery Hall, and it was part of the Masons. It's made of brick. And now it's this church, and I kind of hope they did the reinforcing you need to do to make a brick structure safer in an earthquake. So here's another question you can answer. What types of past businesses operated in locations of well-known San Francisco landmarks today? And here's a kind of controversial landmark, the Salesforce Tower. By the way, a lot of people coming on my Salesforce Transit Center tours, I've heard a bunch of people say they were hoping to get to the top of the tower on our tours, and we do not take you to the top of the tower on our tours. I think there is like a waiting list for the tours that are run by the Salesforce company to go up there. But yeah, what was there before this tower with this cloud-based business? And we can go, here's 1887, and this is the corner of Mission and First Street. You can see, first of all, everything's brick. A lot of stuff is brick anyway, so kind of not great for an earthquake, which, as we know, in a few years they're going to have. And then it's hard to see what the businesses are here, so I've done a little blow up, and you'll see that it was carriage painting and rubber manufacturing and a coffee spice mill. So all kinds of different businesses, cigar company right there. So kind of interesting collection of businesses in 1887. By 1899, it's changed a bit, and it's got some of those foundry works have made their way there. Here, 1913, so things completely changed from 1899 to 1913. I see one of you does one of you have the fire in the background? You have some kind of background picture that might show something from the earthquake and fire. Maybe I'm mistaken about that. But of course, the fire totally transforms this in many parts of San Francisco. And this is one of my favorite things, that on the location of the Salesforce Tower today, this very important cloud-based business was what I would call for 1913 an important data security business, the Pacific Coast Envelope Company. So Pacific Coast Envelope, that would be an important way to send data through the mail without somebody snooping and looking at it. Kind of a little different from our sense of security today. And then this business next door, a Fleischacker and Company. This is the same, you'll remember that name is, the San Francisco Zoo is named after Fleischacker, who was on, I think, the Parks and Rec Commission. And he was a very important figure in turn of the century San Francisco. I think he did banking and other businesses. And I think there's like a Fleischacker pool in San Francisco next to the envelope company. And then by 1950, it's all gone, replaced by what is called the San Francisco Oakland Bay Bridge Railway Terminal, which was a train station that became known as the Trans-Bay Terminal because the train stopped running over the Bay Bridge in 1958. But here is the whole area. So the Trans-Bay Terminal, or the San Francisco Oakland Bay Bridge Electric Railway Terminal building, spanned 4 blocks. And this is the same footprint of the Salesforce Transit Center that I'm doing tours of now. So this was very interesting information for me. And this is 1950. So look at all the, all this brick is here on Mission Street. These are all little businesses. Here at First and Mission, where the Salesforce Tower is today, is the entryway to the railway station. Do have a nice fireproof building over here. That's what that brown indicates. So the neighborhood's really transformed by 1950. And then this is a little hard to see, but these are the viaducts that connected the Trans-Bay Terminal to the Bay Bridge. Because it was a railway bridge, it needed a lot of space to take the railway cars to the terminal. That's actually important for the Salesforce Transit Center today because they were actually able to sell off the land underneath these connectors for some of them, and the money from that helped pay for the $2.2 billion for the new Salesforce Transit Center building. There's still a connector on this side to the bridge, but it enables buses to go both ways through there. Here's another San Francisco landmark. Those of you who are familiar with San Francisco history, especially maybe city guides, you're going to know what was on the footprint of the Transamerica Pyramid before that was built. Maybe I'll make that a quick trivia question. Does anybody want to throw in the chat what was on the footprint? What famous building was in the location where the Transamerica Pyramid is now? And while I'm waiting for someone to do that, I'll read Mark's comment. Fleischhacker was also the owner of the old San Francisco Missions minor league baseball team. Oh, that's a great fact, Mark. In fact, we might see their ballpark in a little bit. And then a bunch of you said the Montgomery Block, and then extra credit for Sue for calling it the Monkey Block, which was kind of its nickname. So the Montgomery Block was, I believe, what was considered to be the first. They called it the first fireproof building in San Francisco. Here it is right here, and I will give you a blow up of it. It is a very famous building. It had lots of famous people in it, and a lot of writers had offices there. So Mark Twain, Ambrose Bierce, Frank Norris. And I always thought that was really interesting that this really fancy building, which I think was the tallest building west of the Mississippi for a time, even though it was only 4 stories high, but that all these famous writers would want to be in this building. But then you look at the layout on the Sanborn Map, and you see there was lots of wine in that building, and there was liquors, and back then to be in the literary business meant you definitely wanted to be drinking a lot of alcohol, and this place had it. Also, gunsmiths were there, so in case someone didn't like something you wrote, then you would have access to that. So in 1887, the Montgomery Block is a really, really vibrant building. But then here it is again. This is 1905. It hasn't really changed that much. This is all marked up, but it's basically the same kind of the same layout of the building. But then when we get to 1913, so not very long later, the Montgomery Block, or the Monkey Block, as you guys are calling it, which I like that name, the Monkey Block survived the earthquake and fire. But you can see there's not a lot of, it doesn't look like there's a lot of business in there in 1913. I don't know if it could be that they just didn't update the map, but it does not seem to be the vibrant place it was. Oh, yes. And somebody mentions Jack London was also writing in that building, another well-known great writer and great consumer of alcohol. So all those businesses, they don't seem to be there in 1913. And then by 1950, it again seems to be like maybe, doesn't seem like a whole lot's going on there. It seems like it's kind of past its prime. And so maybe not that surprising that a couple decades hence they're going to tear it down and build the Transamerica Pyramid. And here's another look at the block. It's kind of cool. They put the names of the buildings on some of these maps. There's all kinds of interesting information they have here. They'll tell you the widths of the streets, the width of the sidewalks. This is a cistern. We know it's how important it is to have cisterns in San Francisco. So all that stuff is going on there. Checking our time, making sure we're doing okay. Here's another question that these maps can answer. That this came up in a recent Bay Trail Confidential program I did. I do a program about places on the Bay Trail, and we did one about Bayview Hunters Point and the closing of the PG&E power plant there, and it was eventually shut down in 2006. This is it in 1986, and it was extremely close to the housing of low-income residents of San Francisco. This was the most polluting power plant in California. It was an oil-burning plant. And if you look over here, I believe these are the smokestacks. And these houses are up on the hill. So they were not much different in elevation from these smokestacks. This housing had originally been built for the military and then was converted into low-income housing. And people were getting really, really sick. A lot of people had cancer, and I don't think it was ever established definitively there was a connection, but the neighborhood was really up in arms about this plant, and they rose up and had it shut down. And for my program, I really wanted to talk about how the bay in that area is a really beautiful section of the bay at India Basin and a park called Heron's Head, that these places are so much better because this activism took place against that plant. And then here's what the plant looked like. So it was really, very, very elaborate plant, look at all the information you have on this thing. Because again, fire insurance are going to want to know about the materials that are used, and are there watchmen? How many are there men on duty at all times, as it says there? So real interesting, detailed information. And if you want to do research on things like that, the Sanborn fire insurance maps are ideal for that. And then getting to that question that Mark kind of alluded, kind of got us thinking about, where were San Francisco's lost ballparks? So ballparks that no longer exist in the city. And we already saw this one, Central Park, located just across the street, kind of from the San Francisco Public Library main branch right now. And then this place is kind of interesting, because we talked about the Odd Fellows Hall was right there. So that's still there, by the way, sort of. So the International Order of, getting that wrong, the Independent Order of Odd Fellows had buildings all over the country. This is not the one that was there in the late 19th century. It was destroyed in the earthquake and fire and rebuilt. So this is the one that was built in the early 20th century, but still there, very historic, really cool building. I don't know how many of you have been in there. I have not had the opportunity to be in there, although I have had a friend, my friend Richie Unterberger got to present there a few times. So I definitely want to get over there. And look, it had like lodging rooms and everything. You could go to the baseball game, and if you were a member of the Odd Fellows, then you could stay at their hotel there. So just very interesting that all that was there. Flashacker's baseball team might have played. Mark, if you know the answer to this, let me know if this is true. The baseball grounds in the Mission District between Valencia, Guerrero, 14th and 15th Streets. And I don't think there's anything there. I didn't go check, but I don't think there's anything there that kind of alludes to that past. But yeah, this was here. And then here, this is pretty cool. The New York Giants playing the San Francisco Seals. And of course, the New York Giants will eventually move to San Francisco and replace the San Francisco Seals. Alonzo King Dance Studio in the Odd Fellows building. I guess is that where Richie presented? Yeah, I hope to get there someday. And then Seal Stadium, and I mentioned Seal Stadium as a lost stadium. This is from 1950. I don't remember, so maybe one of you knows the year it was built. I think it was, I don't know. I'm not going to guess. I would imagine that some of you in the audience went to games at Seal Stadium. I did not. I moved here in 1986. And I think it was torn down not long after Candlestick Park was opened. But the San Francisco Giants played their first 2 years here at Seal Stadium, which was located, I guess you would call this, I call it the Mission District. It's not really Potrero Hill. It's right next to Potrero Avenue, between Bryant and Alameda and 16th Street. And if you go there today, there is a good sports bar there, the Double Play Bar and Grill. And this is where the ballpark would have fit into what's there today. Today, it's got a Safeway. It's just kind of like a run-of-the-mill shopping center with a Pete's. Okay, we'll give them that. But at least this is a good place to watch a baseball game. I've done that, and this is where the ballpark would have been. So these maps enable you to really, really figure that out, like what was there then and what's there today. All right, so here's the heart of this evening's discussion. How do you access the online Sanborn maps? There are prerequisites, and I did kind of, I think I've mentioned this before, but I'll mention it again. You got to have a San Francisco Public Library card. The good news is you can actually get one, even if you live out of state. You can get digital access, which I think includes access to these maps, although don't quote me on that. For $5 a month, there's a digital access, and all that information, the link to the public library FAQs on library cards is on that webpage I just put in the chat, which I created for you guys. By the way, that webpage also has these instructions I'm about to give you. So you don't have to write these down. It'll give you step-by-step instructions for accessing the maps. If there's any problem with those instructions, please let me know and I will update them, because that's the great thing about the web. You will need a computer, although actually I have access to these maps on my smartphone. It can be done. I don't think that's the way you really want to get them. And then you're going to need an address of the place you wish to research. That's not hard to come up with, but you're going to need that. And then this is like the very important step. You're going to need to get to this URL. And it's a long URL, and that's why I put the link on my website. So just go to rodneysftours.com/Sanborn. And of course, bookmark that link if you're going to use it. Again, you're going to want to have the San Francisco Library card if you're going to use it. But bookmark it so you can get to it. And then you will see this login page. And it's going to ask for your library card number and your PIN. And this is not my library card number. I'm not giving you guys that. And okay, maybe I don't have the longest PIN. Maybe I'm about to update it though. So don't knock me for that. But you're going to put in the code on the back of your library card and your PIN. You're going to click submit. And this is the screen you want to get to. You want to get to the screen that says interactive map for fire insurance maps online. I guess there's a group called the Historical Information Gatherers. I kind of feel like I'm a historical information gatherer myself, but I'm not part of their organization. And you're going to just click on this little graphic here. And if you do that, you're going to get to this screen where you're going to have a box at the top where you put in an address. And it can be a pretty simple address. And we're going to do a demo, by the way, in just a minute. So you're going to see me doing this in action. But here on my screenshot, you'll see I put in 701 Mission, click this go button here, and that's going to take you to this page, and it's going to show you the place that you've selected. So I actually selected a place in Yerba Buena Gardens, which, by the way, is I'm working on a new tour of Yerba Buena Gardens that is going to launch next month. So that's where the red pin is. And it's going to show you different years where there are online Sanborn maps. And you're going to want to click on one of these show buttons. I'm going to choose 1913. So if I click on that, the kind of aerial view will be replaced with these boxes with numbers. And you're going to want to remember that the place we want is in box 146. And if this sounds like complicated steps, again, all these steps are on my webpage. I'm not saying this is for, you need to feel a little comfortable navigating computers, but I don't think it's that hard to do. But here's the next step. The next step is kind of the trickiest. You're going to click on the link and you're going to do a right click. And I'm going to show you an example. If I do a right click here, and this doesn't actually work on this because it's an image, but it's going to show you this pull down list, and you want to choose open link in new tab. And it will open the map that you want. It'll actually open the year that you want and give you access to all the maps. And you still need to remember this 146 thing. And then you'll be able to see it. And I know this sounds like a lot of steps, but you're going to see me do it in just a second. So you can see it in action. And again, all these steps are on that web page that I gave you. And then once you right click and open in the new tab, that new tab will have this view. And so it's going to show all the maps that are available for that year, for that volume. And you're going to remember that you wanted 146, which is right here, which I know that's kind of small, but 146. And if you click there, this is what will be displayed. This will be the Sanborn map for that location. And then the other thing that I want you to remember is you're going to want to scroll to the top. This button here that says download JPEG. If you click on that, you will get a high resolution JPEG image of this map. And that's going to be really handy because then you can zoom in, you can see all the detail. You may be thinking, oh, these maps have really, really small lettering. It's true, but you can zoom in. You can see it all very clearly if you download the JPEG. You can also use the zoom in and zoom out buttons here. And then here's this map that we wanted, 146. This is what Yerba Buena Gardens looked like in the year 1913. And you'll see, well, everything was brick. It had the Minna and Natoma Street ran right through it. They no longer run through it. They stop here at 3rd Street and then continue on the other side. Well, they went through before and had a lot of businesses, and not clear if some of these were residences or not. And then the other thing to notice, you've got these, so this is our number, 146. This is page 146, but these other numbers represent the adjoining maps. So if you want to see what would be the east across 3rd Street of Yerba Buena Gardens in 1913, you would go to map 138. So those are the adjoining panels. If you go to 138, this is what you'll see. This is, those of you who know San Francisco know that 3rd and 3rd between Howard and Mission on this side is where the San Francisco Museum of Modern Art is, or as I sometimes call it, the San Francisco Unnamed Museum of Art, because so much of the art in the museum is untitled. But it was a hotel. So there was a hotel, and the hotel changed names, but you'll see the hotels were on this location in various years. And then there were other hotels nearby, which is funny because it's actually flanked by hotels today, all rebuilt, completely new hotels. Because it's kind of interesting that this was an area that had hotels. Thought I'd throw this is just one more piece of information to throw at you guys. There is an actual index in key to these maps, but it's a little hard to find. You have to go to volume 1, map 0. Volume 1, by the way, for San Francisco, you kind of see it down here. Volume 1 is always going to be the area of San Francisco north of Market Street. I think this might be Van Ness here. So, or this is like that kind of, this is where San Francisco started, where Portsmouth Square is, Union Square, all that stuff north of Market. So that's volume number 1. And if you want to get to the map or this key in the index, you would pick an address in this area and then choose map 0, and you'll see this. And it's kind of handy. We saw that key earlier that told us what the different building materials were. All right, so I promised to give you guys a live demo. And let me just stop and see, first of all, does anybody have questions? And before I continue, let's see, I do allow you guys to unmute yourselves, and I think we're okay if anybody wants to unmute and ask a question, or if you want to throw a question into chat. Before I continue, and I'm going to give you a demo of exactly the steps we just went through, but I just want to give you guys a chance to throw your thoughts in there. Oh, and I have a challenge for you. We can actually, and this will be maybe good for someone who's a city guide. If you want to give me the address of a place that you would like me to find maps for, throw that into chat, and I will use that as my example. I would ask you to, I think it'd be wise to choose a place that was close to downtown, because the maps are best when there are places that are that have changed over the years, that are densely populated. I see Beth and Rob gave me 774 Green Street in North Beach. I'm getting a bunch of well, I'm gonna go first with the Green Street one. And I got to stop sharing this and share I got to share my browser. So I'm going to go into my browser, and I have skipped the steps before I logged in. So just assume I've already logged in. I've already clicked on that wonderful link that I've given you guys, that I've told you to bookmark. Now I click on the interactive map. And I'm assuming you guys are seeing this okay, but if you're not, tell me in chat, but I think you are. So we're in here. We're going to put in, I'm going to go into chat and copy out 774 Green Street. I think I can get away with just putting in 774 Green San Francisco. And I'm going to click go. Oh, it's on the other side of, that's interesting. On the other side of Van Ness. And, oh, so the folks who told me Green Street, Beth and Rob, pick a year. What year do you guys want? Because we could pick any of these years. So I could pick, say I pick, if I pick 1886, I have a feeling it's not going to be too detailed. I think we ought to pick, if you don't tell me, I'm going to pick 1899. Let's see what that looks like. Hold on a second. Oh, no, doesn't exist for 1899. Excuse me. So 1899 is not looking, okay, 1913 or whatever is best. I think 1913 is going to be a better option for us. Oh, it's such an interesting place because it's like right on the border. So this is going to, I guess is going to be, well, let's do it. So we see 161. And if I right click here, this is actually the same volume 2 that's kind of south of Market. And then I'm going to pick open link in new tab. And then I've got the new, it takes a little while for the new tab to populate. And I believe you guys should now see, I just want to make sure you're seeing what I'm seeing. You should see a whole bunch of numbers on the left side with actually little tiny maps in them. Oh, and I got to go back here and see the number we wanted was 161. So we're going to go to 161. And here is our map. Kind of interesting. Why is that? That does not seem to be, that's like showing us, that's 161. Maybe let me make sure that was the number we really wanted. So this is Van, is this Van Ness here? Maybe I didn't pick the, maybe, let me put the address in again. 774 Green Street, San Francisco. Let's just be really careful here. Let's see if we get the same place. That did not look right. Okay, this is better. We're going to go back to 1913. Pay no attention to the man behind that curtain. We'll get rid of this one because that we don't want that one. All right. So Green Street, and it's 54, if I'm reading that correctly. So I'm going to do the same thing again, right click, open in a new tab. And we're going to give it a second to populate the tab. Actually, you can probably just see that happening. And then we will go to number 54. Reading glasses can be very helpful for this, by the way. I should have put these on a little while ago. So here is the Sanborn map of that area. That's looking a lot more like what Beth and Rob told me they wanted. There's Green Street. And I wonder why they chose 774 Green Street. There it is. 774 Green Street was a building with 3 flats in 1913. Could it be that, is this where you guys live? You don't have to answer that. Say, no, it's a good friend. You used to live there. Okay, that's a very good answer. But let's go. So now we've seen what it looked like in 1913. Let's go take a look at 1886. And now I'm not going to, oh yeah, okay. So we'll see what it looked like in 1886. That's gonna be interesting because the maps were a little different in that point in the 19th century. So here we have the 1886 map coming up. And oh, I got to go back and remember our number. Number was 33. And if I go and look for 33, this may be a little hard for you guys to see, but there'll be a 33L and a 33R. So at that point, they broke them down into, there'd be 2 panels for each one. I'm going to just choose the R. See, no, I went too far over. R is going to show us Filbert and Union, and we want Green Street. So go back to Green Street, and we're going to zoom in on what used to be Beth and Rob's house. 774 Green. Doesn't seem to be there, although, interesting, Chinese wash house. Oh, there was a brewery. Now here's something. Did you guys, okay, Rob and Beth, did you know there was a brewery on your street in 1886? No idea. Yeah, this is really fun. By the way, there was a brewery in the middle of your Buena Gardens. And this is the kind of stuff that when you go down this rabbit hole, you're going to find all kinds of cool stuff, you know? All right, so I want to pick another one that was thrown in there. I'm not going to be able to do them all, but let's go look at 239 Brannan. And I learned the hard way that you have to, you really do want to put in at least San Francisco, CA. So we'll go to 239 Brannan. And George Dowdell. I think you are a San Francisco City guide, if I'm not mistaken. George, please pick a year. And I guess here's the funny thing for those of you who put in addresses, and I'm not going to be able to get to them. You're going to have some homework. I do have an idea that I would love for you guys to. I'd love to see a bunch of us do some research with these things and do another Zoom meeting sometime in the not too distant future, in like a show and tell, where you tell us what you found and maybe tell some stories based on that. So, okay, George, thanks for that. 1950, and we will go look at map number 135. So I'm going to open up a new tab. Other thing I'll mention, by the way, I told you guys that that I have the instructions on that website. I've also recorded this meeting, and I am planning to post this. So you could go back and look at that video if there's any questions. And good, Gail. I'm glad you like that idea. I agree that I think some really interesting things can come from this. All right, so George, you had said, again, 239 Brannan. I'm zooming in, seeing if there's some street numbers here. And first of all, I want you to notice, like, there's a Pacific Vegetable Oil Company near there. Look at all the rail lines here. We're going to be talking more about this neighborhood very soon. So you'll see, like, Townsend Street was a street that had rail lines on it. Lots and lots of rail traffic in this part of south of Market. In 239 Brannan, I think is going to be somewhere. So I think the one you're telling me about is somewhere in this Pacific Vegetable Oil Company, if I'm not mistaken. George, is that what you were expecting to see? Tell me if there's anything else you would like me to peruse in all this. Looks like a pretty industrial part of the South of Market area. South of Market, very close to the ballpark. And we're going to be talking more. If you guys can stick around, let's see, I've already gone 50 minutes. So there's going to be some bonus content in just a little bit that's going to involve Oracle Park. By the way, looks like the Giants are in a 6-6 tie, not at Oracle Park at the moment. Okay, so George, I hope you like that. I'm going to pick one more just because this is fun. 650 Delancey Street for Susan. And then I'm going to have to say for the others, I think it might be a homework assignment. I might go check them out myself though, on my own time. And Susan, I need you to pick a year also. Oh, did I pick the wrong? I didn't put the right thing in, I guess. 650 Delancey Street. Or am I just looking at the wrong screen? Is that in the same place? I'm a little confused by that. Is there a 650 Delancey Street? Oh, it's in the same map. Oh, but now you want me to go to sometime after 1866. Good, because I think their first year is 1877. Oh yeah, this is, well, you're actually we're going to be looking more at this neighborhood in just a little bit, because I did some research on this very part of San Francisco. But let's take a look at your location, Delancey Street. Oh, I didn't pay attention to my number. So my number, let's see, go back here, is 19. I want to get on 19. Again, these older maps are going to have left and right. So to the right, that looks like something in the bay. California Dry Docks, Mission Rock Dock Warehouse. Very cool. It wasn't called Delancey Street back then. I don't know. We're going to find out, Gail. I'm going to look at the one on the left. It did find something. Japan Street. Who knew? Did anyone know there was a Japan Street down there? So this is again Soma, very close to the ballpark. So Susan, tell me, is this what you were expecting to see? This is China Basin right here. I think a little bit, the ballpark would be over in this area. The Occidental Warehouse is 650 Delancey today. Oh, okay. So that's a good point. Gail, you made a good point that it wasn't called Delancey Street back then, but it actually, this interface uses current street names. I don't think it would even work if you use the old street names. Interesting, because I don't think there's a Japan Street anymore. Also, here's a fun fact I came across. 3rd Street, when it crosses the Lefty O'Doul Bridge, and before there was a Lefty O'Doul Bridge, when it went across a drawbridge, it became Kentucky Street. Kind of cool, And there it is, the Occidental Warehouse, which is still there today. Is that right, Susan? Has it been like restored? Because I know there's a beautiful brick building there. Yeah, okay, very cool. And you can learn all kinds of things about it. Lights, enclosed, I don't know what that is, lard? I don't know. Lard oil lanterns. Could that really be enclosed lard oil lanterns? It might be. Plank floors, 3 fire pails each floor. Oh, well, you got to feel good about that, 3 fire pails on each floor. All right, so I hope I gave you guys a good demo there. I do want to go back to my presentation because I did, as I alluded to, I do have some bonus content for you. I know we're getting close to an hour. Here's some next steps that I would suggest to you guys. First, give the online maps a shot. So I really hope some of you will be able to do this. Again, I say it has to be people with a San Francisco Public Library card. But if you go to your local public library that's not a San Francisco library and ask them about Sanborn Maps, they may have some way of giving you access to some Sanborn Maps, either on microfilm or they may have physical maps. Another place that would be fantastic to go to would be the map library at UC Berkeley, which is a wonderful, wonderful place. The public is allowed to go to, at least I think they are. I know there's been some questions. There have been some questions about which libraries let you in with COVID and all that, with the COVID situation. again, I can't push this enough. These show notes, which I'm just going to go and copy into chat one more time because I worked hard on these and they're available to you guys. And I think they're going to be really useful to getting you going with this. But definitely go to the Rodney SF Tours /Sanborn, and you can just do this thing right from chat. Oh, no, you can't because I didn't copy it right. Okay. RodneySFTours.com/Sanborn. Go to that, and that will get you that link to the fire insurance maps online. If you can, go to the San Francisco History Center. I just called them today to ask if it was okay, for me to refer you guys to them. And they said, yes, we like people coming up here, asking questions. We're happy to help you. Use the physical maps. We'll be happy to help you use the digital maps. And they're just wonderful people. And they love seeing people use these maps. This is where I learned about it. I mentioned this, we can schedule a future Zoom meeting to show off what you find. I want to be a little careful about offering my services as like a help resource. I do have a lot on my plate, but if you shoot me an email with a question, I will do my very best to answer it. And if I'm getting overwhelmed with questions, I'll let you know that too. So you've got my email, and you can get in touch with any questions you run across using these maps. But here's my bonus content that this is, I'm a guide for the San Francisco Giants, or at least I had been before. Actually, someone's saying they want me to put the San Francisco Library Sanborn Map URL again. Okay, for that, just go to my that webpage, RodneySFTours.com/Sanborn, and it will be on there. All right, how much of Oracle Park was once underwater? I already saw an answer from Beth and Rob, all of it, and that is true, although we won't see that on the maps. What we're going to see is, now I wonder if I should have, for some reason I didn't go back to the earlier map, or did I? But this is China Basin in 1899. I think actually it still had all this in the 1870s. By the way, if I sneeze, it's I just started sneezing today, and I hope that's not a symptom of you know what. But if it is, we're all on Zoom, and you're not going to get anything from me. All right, so this is China Basin in 1899, and you can see the Berry Street Wharf going out into the water, in the Hay Wharf, and there were like lumber yards, and these are like warehouses right there. And this is where the ballpark would have been. So the ballpark, those of you who know it well know that it's bounded by 3rd and King. This is where the Willie Mays statue is. And then 2nd Street on the far end. And so this is where the ballpark would have fit in. And so actually, a lot of the sitting area of the ballpark would have been on dry land in 1899, but most of the outfield, most of the field would have been in the water. And especially like Mike Yastrzemski, he would definitely need to be a very good swimmer to play right field if this hadn't changed. Here's 1913, pretty much the same thing, but I like this view because it shows you the whole neighborhood. These are all the train lines that, we know that those of you who know San Francisco know the train station now is at 4th and Townsend, between Townsend and King. But it was actually at 3rd and Townsend before that. I think it was Southern Pacific passenger lines, but lots of freight came through here, and you can see it went all over the South of Market. I think that Occidental warehouse that we were looking at might be right up here or something. But this is where the ballpark would have been on this map. So pretty much the same thing. If we look at 1950, by 1950, it is all filled in. So there's Berry Street coming in. We still got a terminal. We have a building here, actually. I remember that China Basin building from when I moved to San Francisco. And this is where the ballpark would have fit in there. And this is really fun research for me because I've given a lot of tours of Oracle Park. and we do talk about how, it was built on an area that was once underwater, has all kinds of pilings. They did all kinds of things to protect it from earthquakes. I don't know what they can do about global sea level rise. That's going to be a problem. It may end up being a water polo stadium someday. I hope not. But just interesting to see this past and where it fits into all that. So that is the end of my presentation. Oh, I finished in exactly an hour. So I'm happy about that, but I'm also really happy to do Q&A. I see someone suggesting maybe it's allergies, lots of wind and dust. I hope that's the case. I don't really want to get this COVID thing if I can avoid it. I've got tours coming up later this week that it would kind of spoil. So here's hoping that's the case. But I'm really happy to do Q&A. If you want to raise your hand and ask a question, that's fine. If you want to throw it in the chat, I'm looking at chat. Again, go to that webpage and make use of the materials I provided. I hope you have as much fun doing this as I have. You may end up having some sleepless nights. You may end up staying a lot later than you intended to playing with these maps because they're so much fun. So I'm not seeing a lot of questions in chat, and I may therefore end this program, see if the Giants, it's still 6-6 in the bottom of the eighth. Maybe they will prevail, make us all proud so they can come home to the above water Oracle Park and continue having a great season. Thanks for all the kind words. Really enjoyed presenting this to you. This is a real passion of mine, and I will be uploading the video of this to YouTube probably the next 24 hours so other folks can take advantage of this. But in the meantime, everyone have a good night. Stay clear of COVID.